All right, welcome to another episode of the My New Normal podcast. We are here with Jon Macaskill. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll let you
Thanks.
give a little intro of yourself here. But first, we want to thank our sponsors. So first, we have Highlight. They are giving a 40% off discount to new users who sign up, and the code for that is NewNormal40. That will be in the show notes. But Highlight is a fitness lifestyle brand founded on the core belief that a company's impact can and should live beyond the products that they sell. As they build on a foundation of innovation and quality, their energy is equally focused on inspiring the well-being of our community. One of our other sponsors is RX Smart Gear. They're offering 15% off with gift code NHLBRX. Again, I know that is kind of a random thing to remember, so don't worry, that's in the show notes. As well as the online adaptive trainer course with the Ready State, you get 15% off with My New Normal 15. And as a reminder, Movement RX has an in-person adaptive training course, and we're really excited that our next one coming up in February is sold out here in San Diego, but we have a few more throughout the rest of the year. Our next one that is still available to sign up for is in Colorado Springs on April 4th. So check out Movement RX's website to get signed up for that course. It is free. So if you're interested in learning about how to work with adaptive athletes, or you're an adaptive athlete yourself and want to learn how to adapt those movements, this course is an amazing opportunity to do that. So be sure to check that out on our website. And about our in-person course or class that we have here in San Diego.
Yeah, if you are an adaptive athlete or you are a veteran, we offer adaptive athlete classes Monday, Tuesday, and Friday at CrossFit 1904 from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. You can email us. Remind me the email that they email us
Get
at.
better at movement-rx.com.
Email us, contact us, and come find your community, find your tribe, get some good strength and conditioning workouts with us here at CrossFit 1904 in San Diego.
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Megan.
And I'm PE Kale.
And we are here with Jon Macaskill. We are so excited to be talking with you.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm really excited to talk with you guys and see where we go with this conversation. I love organic conversation and just sharing my story and then learning more about you guys.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you want the listeners to know about who you are and where you've been in life?
So let's see. I am a 42-year-old and I'm married with 2 little kids. So I got a late start. As a matter of fact, I think Teresa's little boy is about the same age as my little girl, Mia. My girl turns 3 in March. My little boy turns 1 next month. And it's fun getting a late start as a parent.
Young,
but,
yeah, on your toes.
Yeah, right. 42 years young. But it's a blast. I'm very glad that I am where I am in my life, that I can support them and provide what they need now and what they will need down the road. I am a 23-year Navy veteran. I've been in the Navy since 1996, as an officer in the SEAL teams since 2003. And with that, I've had a great adventure, some ups and downs, some good times and bad, but mostly when I look back, I look back on my Navy career favorably. And I'll be transitioning out this summer, retiring in August, and my wife and I are going to be jumping in our 31-foot RV and spending, 6 or so months on the road enjoying this beautiful country. So
that's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your upcoming retirement. I'm sure it's exciting and a little bit scary on the transition we'll be making.
Make your way.
It is.
San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we'll definitely be coming through San Diego. I mean, I love San Diego. Having gone through SEAL training there, I fell in love with that part of the country, and I was stationed out there once before. After training, I freaking love it. It's a great spot.
That's awesome. So tell us about your consulting and what you're doing now outside of the Navy.
Yeah. So I am like I said, I'm in my transition phase of the Navy career, and been blessed to be authorized to do a couple of things in this last few months. So the first portion is underneath the SkillBridge, DoD SkillBridge program that allows you to do an internship for an outside entity while you are still on active duty. And there's actually under that, even further under that, there's another directive under SOCOM, Special Operations Command, that allows injured special operators to do it for up to a year, this internship. I started this internship with an organization called Veterans Path. Veterans Path is a nonprofit that teaches veterans the life-changing, life-saving skills of mindfulness and meditation. At the same time, I've got my hands up here. I'm not sure, I can't remember if you guys do video or not for this, but at the same time, I've got kind of a side hustle going on with Macaskill Consulting. And the reason I called it that was at one point, I thought that I was going to do some type of traditional management consulting or leadership consulting. And then I started really getting passionate about mindfulness and meditation and realized, hey, I can just use that Macaskill Consulting as the umbrella term for what it is I do, but I actually introduce teams, corporate teams, to the benefits of mindfulness and meditation in the corporate arena, because it does actually help you to become more focused, more creative, more productive, and a better communicator within the corporate side. So that's what I do now. In the last, I retire in August, and I've been doing this for the past year. On the Macaskill Consulting piece, the Veterans Path piece, I've been doing since November, and I'll do that until August as an intern. And then ideally, I'll be transitioning, doing that 6 months or so in the RV, and then transition to a full-time paid employee with that same nonprofit, Veterans Path. So got a couple of irons in the fire, but I'm trying to figure it out as I go.
May I ask, that's very fascinating, go from Navy SEAL to mindfulness. How does that happen?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it happened, about 3 years ago. Prior to that, I was battling with a little bit of depression and stress and anxiety. The time in the teams had kind of gotten to me. Again, I love the work that I was doing, but it was wearing me thin, wearing my family out. And I was going to a doc, a psychiatrist and psychologist, and the psychologist recommended, hey, you should try something else. You should try meditation. And I kind of scoffed at him, and it's like, meditation, dude, I've got real stuff going on. I need something that's going to work. And then he's like, well, I want you to try meditation and mindfulness. And I was like, I don't even know what mindfulness is, but sure. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about it, because you seem pretty adamant. So he sat me down and he told me the science and the benefits behind mindfulness and meditation. And I'm kind of a science guy. I need to see facts, figures, proof, right? Mm-hmm. So he showed me why physiologically meditation works. And so I tried it out for 2 weeks, just very simple, just using my apps on my phone, just some basic guided meditations. And I went back into them and I was like, oh man, it's not working. So what else you got? And he's like, well, that's like going to the gym for 2 weeks, or like going to CrossFit for 2 weeks, right? And expecting that you're going to be a pro. And so okay, yeah, good point. Now you're speaking my language, because at one point I was in pretty decent shape. I need to get back in shape. I need to use some of the Movement RX stuff. But anyhow, so took his word back, went back for about 2 months, doing it daily. I mean, nothing super intensive, but 15 minutes here and there as far as the meditation. And then the mindfulness piece. And mindfulness is just being present in the here and now, paying attention to your bodily sensations, paying attention to whatever it is you're doing, rather than thinking about the future and worrying about it, or thinking about something in the past that you can't change. So throughout the day, I would take a pause and be like, okay, well, what am I doing right now? Like, I'm actually eating. I want to enjoy whatever it is I'm eating. Take notice of that, instead of just scarfing it down and moving on to the next task. Anyway, did that for about 2 months, and I started to see differences in how I was handling work, how I was handling relationships, how I was handling just stress and anxiety writ large. And at the same time, I had one of my old mentors in the Navy say, hey, look, Jon, if you're going to be retiring here in a couple of years, you need to start thinking about what it is you want to do. And I started looking at all the bright and shiny objects that are out there. Started looking at, private equity and commercial real estate and a lot of the great jobs that people get after they get out of the military, but nothing was really jumping out at me. And I was like, well, great, this transition is going to be tough. And in the meantime, I'm still meditating every day, and I was reading books about meditation, reading books about mindfulness, and just getting to know it a little bit better. And then somebody came up to me and they were like, hey man, what are you doing differently? Because you seem more relaxed than you used to. You seem happier, more focused, more productive. And I was like, well, and so I started telling him, and I was like, oh, well, that was fun. I actually shared what it is I've been doing. And, at first I was a little hesitant to tell anybody that I was meditating or that I was practicing mindfulness, because they come with a stigma, which is unfortunate, but they do. And I'm hoping to change that. Mm-hmm. But anyhow, so I was in my mind kind of embarrassed to share it. But then when I did share it, people were very open to listening and opening to try it out. And then I realized, oh, well, the answer is right here in front of me. I can actually teach this for a job. I can teach meditation and mindfulness. And then I thought about creating my own company where I do it for corporate teams, and then creating a company where I do it as a nonprofit teaching veterans. But in my research, I found out that there's already one, Veterans Path, so I didn't have to recreate that wheel. And so I got involved with them through some networking events that I went to, and through some transition foundations that assisted with that. And then again, took my consulting name, Macaskill Consulting, and I turned that from a management consulting, a leadership consulting, into a corporate training with mindfulness. So that was probably a really long answer to your super simple question, but that's how I came from being a SEAL to being a mindfulness practitioner and now teacher.
Well, I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg too. I'm sure there's a lot more to that story.
Yeah, there is. And that could probably be another whole show in and of itself.
So what would you say to somebody who was in your shoes, when you were very skeptical, and for those that you talk to still that are like mindfulness meditation, that still see it as this like woo-woo thing. How is that going to help? This is a very serious issue that I'm dealing with. What are some of the resources that you like to point people to, and how do you help them understand how important?
Sure. As far as helping them to break through that stigma, I tell them kind of the same science and benefits that the psychologist told me initially. Was, okay, well, here's the physiology behind it. So you've got your amygdala, which is your fight or flight response part of your brain, which is what we use quite often when somebody comes to us with a task where they give us a deadline. So we start reacting instead of responding, and our amygdala kicks in that hyperdrive, right? And what we should be doing is responding with our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that's responsible for cognitive thinking. And by meditating, people say, well, I can't meditate because my mind bounces around all the time. That's called the monkey mind. Well, trying to stop your mind from wandering around, that's like trying to stop your heart from beating. And the very act in noticing that your brain has gone elsewhere and wandered around, and then bringing it back to the breath or some other sensation in your body, that act in and of itself over and over and over rewires your brain to respond differently, to respond instead of react, to respond with the prefrontal cortex instead of reacting with the amygdala. So I tell people that first, and then I tell them, some high performers that practice it. I mean, Oprah Winfrey, Denzel Washington, great basketball players and football players, superstar athletes that are doing it. And then they're like, okay, well, maybe there is something to this. And then as far as getting them started, if they do in fact want to go to the next step after I've bored them with the science, then I introduced them to the same apps that I started with. I started with Insight Timer, and I still use Insight Timer fairly regularly. As a matter of fact, I've actually published some things on there that talk about some of the same stuff we're talking about on the show. I use 10% Happier, which is Dan Harris's stuff. And then eMindful, which has military-specific stuff for the veterans as they're transitioning out right now, and they're starting to develop some more military stuff. Funny enough, with Veterans Path. and I'm going to be helping with that. So I used eMindful, and now here I am helping to develop content for them, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I break the ice and then introduce them to how they can start themselves. And then I tell them about some basic books. Again, 10% Happier by Dan Harris. Jon Kabat-Zinn is kind of the father of mindfulness in the West. He's got several books. So anything written by Jon Kabat-Zinn, I highly recommend. So those are some ways I introduce people to mindfulness meditation now.
Awesome.
I have a question that's kind of off script, if you don't mind for a second.
Sure.
So I love that there are the resources and the tools that are available. I find as working with somebody who, working with people who have a lot of trauma, PTSD, there's a sense before they even get into doing the work, there's this sense of shame behind it. And this wall that's in front of people that has to be broken down somehow. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these people just, what would you say to these people who are in this state, who are ashamed of the fact that they need help?
Yeah, I think that's the stigma that I'm really working with our podcast on Veterans Path to break, is that everybody needs help. It's just like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym and you're ashamed that you're in bad shape, right? You go to the gym and you're like, I'm in bad shape. I need help. I'm going to hire a personal trainer, or I'm going to hire a CrossFit trainer, or I'm going to hire somebody to help me get from where I am to where I want to get. And there's no shame in that. Mm-hmm. But somehow talking to somebody about mental health and getting help mentally, there's a stigma in that. What I did back in the teams is I had a big calendar on my wall behind me that had every day written out. And whenever I went to go see the psych, I would write mental health appointment in giant red on my calendar for everyone to see. And some of the guys would come up and say, "Hey man, what's wrong? What's going on?" I'm like, well, nothing's going wrong. I'm working to just keep myself healthy mentally. And I think that if we can reframe mental health to be where we are maintaining our mental health, maintaining and improving it, rather than fixing our mental health. Yeah. That's kind of the reframe that needs to happen. As far as people who do have post-traumatic stress, I don't like to call it a disorder because, I have it myself. I don't like to call it that because I honestly feel that people who have been exposed to extreme trauma, if they don't respond with what's defined as the disorder now, they don't respond with being scared or having nightmares. Those are the people I'm more concerned about. Those are the people, if you're not responding that way to extreme trauma, then there's probably something more wrong. So I just go with post-traumatic stress and dealing with the challenges that come with that. Some people even call it post-traumatic growth. A lot of people come from traumatic experiences and they grow from that. So as far as dealing with any shame in that, there's no shame in having fear or in having nightmares or in having tremors or in having anxiety after being exposed to that. It's a perfectly natural reaction to what you've seen, what you've been exposed to, what you've done. So that's how I tell people is that, look, there's no shame in this.
All right.
Yeah, that's, I think, very powerful. And it's hopefully, with the work that you're doing, it'll continue to be destigmatized, that it will just be a normal part of, health and wellness screenings. Like, yes, we screen for mental health issues, but, it's almost seen as something has to be extremely wrong and you're very dysfunctional in your life for anything to be done about it, rather than, people put this in the back of their mind and it influences, it seeps through every interaction in life in a very unhealthy way until more often than not, it boils over in some way.
Totally.
Whether that's in personal life or something happens at work, whatever it is, and being able to get at that before you reach that point and realizing like this is something that should be addressed, not just like, oh well, it's there, but you're going through life fine. It's okay.
Right. It's going to start surface at some point, in some way. It's going to manifest, and if you're not acknowledging it, and if you're not addressing it, it's going to manifest and come to the surface in a bad way, most likely. So it's much healthier to just say, okay, look, I came back from whatever traumatic experience I was exposed to. What do I do now? Like right as soon as you can. Allow people to heal by giving them the tools. Allow yourself to heal by seeking out those tools is what I think. So yeah, fully agree.
Along those lines, what would you say between like the corporate business stuff that you've been doing and working with veterans, what are some of the biggest blind spots when it comes to this, of where people don't realize, their state of stress is affecting their work or their personal life, or, blind spots of where they don't realize that how much this could help them?
Sure. So I'll address both simultaneously because I don't think they're necessarily separate and distinct. I think they're inextricably intertwined. Is the stress that you deal with in corporate America, yes, it's different, but it's still stress, right? So dealing with post-traumatic stress, dealing with stress in corporate America, you end up not sleeping well. You end up worrying about the future, worrying about some deadline, worrying about bills, worrying about your kids, everyday stressors. The blind spots is that you start worrying about those. You end up not eating right. You end up not sleeping right. You end up not taking care of your body. You end up not taking care of your mind. And as soon as you start doing that, it's like, well, I don't have time to take care of myself because I'm taking care of X, Y, or Z. Well, the blind spot is, if you don't take care of yourself properly, then you're not taking care of X, Y, or Z properly. You're not taking care of work. You're not taking care of your family. You're not taking care of whatever it is that you have to take care of, because you are not optimized. And the way that you can optimize yourself is through mindfulness and meditation, which allows you to sleep better. Sleeping better allows you to perform better at work, performing better with your family. Once you're performing better there, then you sleep better, you stress less, and it's this kind of what I like to call as an upward spiral. You're improving all the time. The same thing as, if you're able to do that mentally, now you can get to the gym because you're less tired, right? Well, if you can take care of yourself physically now, then that also helps your mind. So it's like the two come together. You take care of your mind, you can sleep better, less stress, which ultimately kind of compounds on itself, which allows you to work out, which compounds on itself again. So it's just this cumulative effect. Taking care of your mind and your body, they go together.
Absolutely.
That's great. So what are some of the challenges you are facing as you're transitioning from being a veteran, from being in the military and now starting your own business and doing this? What are challenges in your life right now?
I think there's several. I think the biggest one is just a loss of identity, or a change in identity, right? So I've been a SEAL since 2003. Loved the work, loved the teams, loved the operations that was going on. And then, in all honesty, a part of me was defined as being a SEAL. I would go and visit friends, and they would introduce me as, "Hey, here's my friend, the SEAL." I'm like, "Hey, man, I've also got a name here, but sure." And I didn't advertise that. I didn't advertise necessarily that I was a SEAL, but that's what other people would do. And so it kind of becomes a part of your identity. Your uniform, whether you're a SEAL or not, if you're a military member, that uniform becomes a part of your identity. You walk around, you walk into a room, your name is on one side, your rank is on the other with all your ribbons. People can see instantly who you are, what you've done. And now you're walking around in civilian clothes. Nobody knows you from Adam on the street. Nobody knows what you've done. So it's almost like a dose of humble pie. You're like, okay, well, so they don't see that I'm wearing my trident. I mean, don't you know who I am, right? That kind of piece. I think
I think
that's,
I am.
yeah, exactly. Sorry, I'm getting all these notifications on my phone here, so hopefully you're not hearing too many of them. But anyhow, I think that's a piece of it, the loss of identity. The next piece is that loss of mission. So, I mean, the whole time you're in the military, our purpose is to serve and defend our country. Well, now what? Now we're going to go out and work for corporate America. What's our new why? And I mean, nothing wrong with corporate America, nothing at all. It's just a different mission, right? And you have to find what that mission is. That's why I think a lot of military members end up serving in some capacity in a nonprofit or in a church or in their community, because they want to continue to serve. And that's why I ended up joining Veterans Path. Was let me see if I got it here on my desk, but I don't. But I've got this. Oh yeah, actually I do. No, I lied. I don't. Anyway, I've got this mind map that I drew out. It's like under the advice of a transition book that I read called Designing Your Life. And basically you draw a mind map and like, okay, what's kind of the big piece of work that you enjoyed? And so you start with this center, and I think it was like leadership in the center. And then from there, you're like, okay, what do you like leading? I like leading teams, small teams, elite teams, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it grows. And then you finally define the outer ring of this mind map. You're like, okay, well, I want to serve my fellow man, generally man, right? I want to serve in some capacity. And I found out, I was like, oh, okay, well, I want to work in nonprofits. Boom, there it is, kind of right there in front of me. And then that transition allowed me to refine and redefine what my mission is, my new mission. So I had a loss of identity. That's just something I have to overcome. You're not gonna kind of change that. You do have a new identity because you had other parts to you, right? If you had any depth in you in the military, you had more than just the uniform that you're wearing. So you have to just kind of relook at yourself and say, okay, who am I? Then you look at the loss of mission and you're like, okay, well, what's my new mission? What's my new why? And I think once you can do that, that makes the transition a lot easier. Not only in the stress that you feel, but also it helps you to identify and narrow down the different fields that you're looking at going into. So again, that private equity, that commercial real estate that I was considering, I realized that was nowhere on my mind map, right? I didn't want to go that route. Again, nothing wrong with it, but it just wasn't for me. So I think that's a big piece that people struggle with, is identifying who they are and what their why is. And if you can get that done before you hang up that uniform, then I think that transition and that final day is going to be a lot easier. That said, I'm saying that still 8 months out. Mm-hmm. I haven't actually hung up my uniform. So if we talk, in 8 or 9 months, and I'm like, oh, I've got a completely different story. That last 8 or 9 months was super stressful. I may have something completely different to tell you. But right now, I think it was the change in identity, or definition of identity, and then the loss of mission, change of mission.
So along those same lines, what are the successes that you feel like you've had? One, you can talk about over your career, the things that you're most proud of, but as you're going through this transition, what are you most excited about, and what have been some of the successes in this transition that you're most proud of?
Yeah, the reason I was looking behind me there for a second was on my wall here. I've got a kind of a nerd wall there. It's a bunch of stickies. But bottom line is, it's kind of like I don't know if you're
organized.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with the term plan of action and milestones, but it's one that we use in the military. Is basically we come up with what your goal is, and then how you're going to get from here to there. The plan of action and milestones, or the POAM, when we acronymize, sure. when we make it an acronym. Yeah. Well, that's my POAM, and I'm very proud of the fact that I am where I am, working with a nonprofit 6 to 8 months prior to my getting out. So and it came because I wish I could say it came because of who I am, but it came because a mentor sat me down and was like, hey, you need to start planning. So I'm proud that I did plan properly, or at least I hope that I have, to get out. As far as my time in the service, what am I proud of? I'm proud of my time in the service. I'm proud of the men and women that I served beside on the battlefield. Beside on the battlefield, and the men and women that I got the opportunity to lead. And when I say lead, I feel that there's leaders throughout the ranks in the military. So a lot of the junior men and women that I work for, I learned lessons from them. So I may have been in a higher rank than them, but I think I learned so much from working with them. So yeah, I truly think my leadership position that I was in were opportunities for me to learn from those that who I worked for. Really, I feel that I worked for my junior personnel, men and women both, and really I was out there trying to get them work, trying to improve their careers, improve their time in the Navy, and so I guess really when I look back on it, what am I most proud of? It's serving both the country and then serving my fellow service members.
That's great. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Appreciate the support.
And thank you for touching people's lives. What I just heard you say is that that's what you're taking away as the most valuable things, the lives that touched you and the lives that you've touched more so.
Absolutely.
The tangible things.
Yeah. And I think, I'm hoping to carry that forward and continue to do that outside of uniform. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure to do it in uniform, but now I've got to move on to the next chapter and let somebody else do it in uniform. So.
All right. So what excites you? You were talking about transitioning. It's a word I use almost every day. As you're transitioning into your new normal, what's exciting you?
Oh my goodness. I guess one, you mentioned Colorado Springs for one of those, I think it was the adaptive athlete workshops that you guys are running. Mm-hmm. Living in Colorado Springs is great, but I think that's where I hope to retire is Colorado Springs. And being able to choose that and not have the Navy tell me where I'm going to live, that I'm very much looking forward to. And I'm very much looking forward to having time with my family and not deploying. I'm very thankful for those who do sacrifice and deploy with family. I didn't ever have kids while I deployed. Can't imagine how that feels. I mean, when I'm gone for a week or something, that's tough for me. And if I can't get on FaceTime with my kid, even during that week, I mean, one of whom isn't even speaking yet, then that's tough for me. I can't imagine deploying for 6 months, a year, 18 months, and only getting to talk to your children every so often. So I got to give a shout out to my fellow service members who are coming in now to serve now, who are raising their hands now. Thank you for what you're doing. And I really appreciate the fact that you can do this with family. As far as, so that comes back to what I'm excited about is spending time with my family in Colorado Springs, getting outdoors, during the summer, hiking and biking, in the winter, getting out and doing stuff in the snow. And then immediately upon transition, getting that RV and spending 6 or so months on the road and just enjoying this beautiful country. I mean, I've seen this country several times, driving back and forth between the West Coast and the East Coast when I've been moving, but that was always a rush. Hey, you have to make it from the East Coast to the West Coast in so many days. And it was even a source of pride to say, hey, I drove across the country in 2.5 days instead of just taking the time to enjoy the sights along the way. So I think those are the pieces that I'm most excited about.
Yeah. And even with your kids being so young, getting to see the wonder in their eyes of everything y'all are going to get to see and experience will give it a whole new level of excitement as you get to go on that journey.
Definitely. I'm going to take plenty of pictures to blackmail them with in the future, when they're hanging out naked in some river. I'll show that to them when they're 18 years old. So they'll remember it through pictures. We'll take plenty.
Yeah. So what we spoke about it a little bit earlier as far as, you know, the advice that you would give to people seeking to learn more about mindfulness and meditation. But, you know, what would you say, what prescription would you give to somebody who maybe was in your shoes even earlier on in your service days, like when mindfulness and meditation was never even on your radar, and maybe when you were dealing with some of the hardest stresses that you faced? What would you say to somebody who is in your shoes of things that they can do? What advice would you offer to somebody who's in that place that's listening?
Yeah. So I just released something on Inside Timer, specifically tailored for military members and first responders that are potentially going into a very high stress situation. And really, you know, people are like, well, if you're in a high stress situation, if you're being shot at, or you're a fire, you know, a first responder going to a fire, or a policeman, police officer, there's no time to take a breath or anything, right? The prescription that I would recommend is practice it now. You know, if you're under stress, take a quick breath in and then slowly breathe out. And as you're breathing out, you're tapping into your parasympathetic nervous system. And as you tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, your heart rate slows down, your breathing rate slows down, and then you can actually see and do things better, right? Well, if you're going into a very high stress situation, how do you want to go into those high stress situations? You want to go in under control. So what I would recommend people do is start training your body to do that now when you're not under a high stress situation, so that it becomes second nature, so that it does, if you are on the battlefield and you do start getting shot at, if you're in the firehouse and a call comes in that you have to go and respond to a fire, you can take 2 seconds, take a deep breath in and a slow breath out, and you kind of reset your body, because you're going to perform better, and that can be life-saving, literally, on both the battlefield and out as a first responder. And then it can also be life-saving and life-changing for those who are not necessarily facing such extreme stress. I mean, dealing with the little one. Heck, when my little girl is having a tirade, there's times when I just take a quick breath in and slow breath out, and it resets who I am. And then I'm like, hey, baby, I'm talking to my little girl. Take a deep breath in, blow out like you're blowing out your candles on a birthday cake. And so she resets as well. And you can actually see it. The red face that she had 3 seconds ago is now calmed down. I think I sent a pic or a video of that to Teresa a couple months ago, where my little girl was doing that. And it's pretty incredible to see it. So prescription personally is start practicing now, start practicing super simple, just with a very basic breathing drill like I just described. And then start teaching those you love, those around you, to do the same. And it can really change not just who you are, but change the environment in a home, change an environment in a workspace. So I think that's my 2 cents on that.
Deep breathing for everyone.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Along those same lines, I want to share a book that I really like on mindfulness and meditation that maybe you've heard of. Have you heard of Thich Nhat Hanh? He's a Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
I love
it. I have one of his books here. As a matter of fact, I just interviewed another SEAL last week, former Master Chief Bob Newman, and he showed up with one of his books. Yeah. Shoot, I don't know if you can tell, but behind me I've got stacks of books, one of which, let's see, Teresa's is up there as well. So, yeah, she'll be proud.
But one of my favorite books of his is Peace is Every Step. That was the first, kind of my first introduction to mindfulness meditation. I think I was maybe listening to a podcast and his name was mentioned, and I came across this book, and it was, I wasn't hugely skeptical of it, but I was definitely never a practitioner of it either, of mindfulness or meditation. And that book was so great because at the time I had a very long commute to work, and I would get very frustrated in rush hour traffic, stuck in the car for some days like 2 to 3 hours. And it sets a tone for the the whole evening, especially once
Sure.
I'm home and all of that. But his book, Pieces Every Step, was very life-changing for me in that he talks about taking the most mundane activities. You're washing the dishes, which is generally not a fun activity that anybody enjoys. But you use that time to focus on your breathing, and you use that time, okay, I don't like washing the dishes, but I can sit here and do some deep breathing, take some deep
Sure.
breaths. And it was amazing putting that into practice, because it's something that I have to do anyway. So I'm sitting there doing it. I might as well like try to do something I enjoy.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, the way that it resets how you feel. And he would call these like chimes. So that's kind of your meditation chime. These activities that you maybe don't enjoy, or something that would normally set you off and make you angry or frustrated, use that as an opportunity to do some deep breathing. And the other one that really spoke to me at the time was brake lights. Anytime you see a bunch of brake lights in front of you because you're stuck in very frustrating traffic, rather than getting upset with it, because it's not going to change, traffic's not going to, so getting angry about it's not going to make it better. It only makes you feel worse. Use that as your opportunity, your meditation chime, to sit there and do some deep breathing. And I was like, okay, I can get through this a little bit better. But that I really liked that. It's a very short book. It's a quick, easy read, and he kind of goes through different examples of opportunities to do that. And I really liked that as kind of an introduction to mindfulness and meditation as well.
And I tell you, the mindfulness during driving, that's huge. I mean, not only should you be paying attention in the moment, right, while you're driving, but as a de-stressor, so you're either driving to or from work typically, right? I mean, sure, you're going to go out to eat every once in a while, but the majority of your time in the vehicle is spent driving to and from work. And if you're stressed in that vehicle, now you arrive at work stressed out, or vice versa, you're arriving at home stressed out, or both. And then you carry that stress from the car, from the steering wheel, into your house. So something that I've started doing, I haven't done the brake lights, I like that idea, but is just paying attention. Like, I'll turn the radio off, like the last 5 miles or the last 5 minutes that I'm in the car going either way, turn the radio off and just pay attention to the sound of the rolling of my wheels, paying attention to the actual tactile sensation of the steering wheel in my hand, paying attention to my breathing, and then park the car, pull up, park the car, and take 2 minutes to just be, right? And when I come home, the image that I have in my mind rather, is like, okay, get out of the car, just done that deep breathing for a second, and I've got 2 suitcases in my hands, one in each hand. The past is one, and the future is the other. Well, my image in my mind is I put those suitcases on the front doorstep, and then I walk into the door, because what I want to be concerned about when I walk through that door is right here in the present with my little ones, with my wife, not, a deadline that I have to meet or some PowerPoint that I didn't put together properly in the past. And that's what I think ruins a lot of people's time at home, is that they are stressed out about stuff from work that day because they didn't have a time to decompress, but they didn't make that time. They had the time,
right,
but they didn't make it. So
I love that.
I like that. I knew a person who had a similar practice. What he would do is he had a certain flower growing outside of his front door, and when he'd come home, he'd stop, put everything down, and take a few minutes to smell that flower and use that as a trigger of the war of the outside world is now come to an end. I'm going into my safe place with my family. Get with the present.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a good idea. Same kind of idea behind it. But I like the smell, because that's adding in a whole different sensation too. So
maybe get a little flower for your RV door.
Yeah.
Have something where you're living now if you have stressful times during the rest of your day. Anything else you want to share? Also, definitely give us some information, links about your website, where people can follow you on the socials. But is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we sign off?
Sure. Yeah. A couple of things. First off, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on Veterans Path a little bit more, and specifically the podcast. I mean, it's just called Veterans Path. You can find us on all the major platforms. And then Veterans Path, the reason it's called PATH, P-A-T-H, Veterans Path, is that we help to bring veterans back to a sense of peace, acceptance, transformation, and honor. And that's where PATH comes from in our name. And you can find us at veteranspath.org. And we are a nonprofit constantly looking for fundraising and support. So if you're looking to support a nonprofit, I recommend checking us out, veteranspath.org. And then we are on all the social media platforms. Just look for us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And then let's see what else. Oh, as far as me, find me on most platforms as well. It's Jon Macaskill, Jon, no H. Last name is Macaskill, Macaskill. I think I'm the only Jon Macaskill that practices mindfulness who is a Navy SEAL. So if you look me up, that's how you'll find me. And yeah, the biggest way probably to correspond with me if you have any questions about what I do or we're looking to connect. I'm on LinkedIn most often out of any of the platforms. So that's how you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. And thank you to our sponsors again, High Elite, RX Smart Gear, and the Ready State. Be sure to check out the show notes for those discount codes once again. And we will see you in the next episode of My New Normal podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us, Jon.
Hey, thank you guys. I really appreciate the opportunity.